Never notice how the moment you start doing something that actually matters, people suddenly need a reason for it. You quit drinking. Why? You stop hanging out every weekend. What happened? You post something about self-discipline. Who are you trying to impress? It's like every time you grow, someone somewhere feels entitled to a press conference about your choices. It's strange, isn't it? Because when you were wasting time, nobody asked questions. When you were distracted, nobody cared. But the moment you tighten your focus, everyone wants an explanation. The reason is simple. Your growth makes them uncomfortable. You upgrading yourself shines a light on their stagnation, and they don't like what they see in that reflection. People pretend they're curious, but they're really trying to measure you. They want to know if your decision threatens their comfort zone. If it does, they'll call you arrogant, distant, or obsessed. Anything to make themselves feel better. The truth? They don't care about why you're doing something. They care about how it makes them feel about their own lack of movement. And here's where most people get trapped. They keep explaining. They defend their goals, justify their standards, rationalize their focus, as if the approval of spectators could ever pay the bills or build a legacy. Every explanation is a tiny leak of power. You think you're keeping peace, but you're actually handing out control. Each time you say, I just want you to understand, what you're really saying is, I need you to approve. Stop that. You don't owe anyone an essay on your evolution. You don't need to hand out reasons like free samples. The world won't remember what you said, it'll remember what you did. There's something to think about. The people who truly respect you rarely ask for explanations. They just watch. They can feel the intent behind your silence. They don't need proof. They recognize energy, and yours has changed. That's enough. The irony is that the same people who demand explanations from you rarely give any for their own failures. They disappear when things go wrong, but they want front row seats to your progress report. That's because it's easier to analyze someone else's life than to fix their own. You explaining yourself gives them temporary relief from their own accountability. The real ones don't do that. The real ones understand that silence is part of the process. When you're building something, you don't stop every few minutes to narrate it to the crowd. You keep your head down, you work. You produce results. Let your success speak the language they can't ignore. It's not about being rude, it's about being focused. There's a difference between arrogance and assurance. Arrogance is shouting, I'm better than you. Assurance is saying nothing and proving it anyway. Assurance doesn't need an audience, it just needs action. And once you stop explaining, something powerful happens. You start to feel lighter. You start realizing how much energy you wasted trying to be understood by people who were never capable of understanding you in the first place. You stop trying to win debates that don't matter. You stop crafting sentences to justify your peace. You simply live. That's real freedom. Not cars, not money, not status. Freedom is waking up and doing what feels right to you without needing to write a thesis about it. Freedom is not having to explain to anyone why you protect your time, your mind, and your focus. Freedom is knowing your path is yours alone. Most people never experience that kind of peace because they're addicted to approval. They fear being misunderstood more than they fear being average. They'll keep talking, keep softening their goals, keep explaining their every move just to stay liked. What being liked never built greatness. Being respected did, and respect rarely comes from explanation. It comes from action, discipline, and results. So the next time someone asks, why are you doing all that? Look at them and smile. You don't owe them a paragraph. You owe them results. Let your silence be uncomfortable for them. Let your results be too loud to ignore. Because when your results start speaking, they won't be asking why anymore. They'll be asking how. And that's when you'll know you made it. Here's the truth. The habit of explaining yourself doesn't come from strength, it comes from guilt. Somewhere along the way, you got conditioned to believe that doing what's best for you automatically requires an apology. You started believing that protecting your energy is selfish, that saying no makes you rude, and that choosing silence means you owe someone an explanation. You don't. You ever notice how the people who demand explanations are almost always the ones who gave you the least? They'll disappear when you needed support, but show up instantly when they sense change, asking questions, making comments, pretending to care when they're just trying to decode your new boundaries. It's funny because when you were lost, nobody was asking for a PowerPoint presentation. But the moment you start to get your life together, everyone suddenly becomes an investigator. That's why you've got to get comfortable with being misunderstood. If your goal is to be universally understood, you'll never move. Every time you grow, someone will take it personally. You start waking up early, and your lazy friends feel judged. You start eating better, and people call you boring. You start saying no, and suddenly you've changed. Good. That means it's working. Growth looks like rebellion to those who've never evolved. You don't need to sit down and explain every boundary you build. A lion doesn't explain why it hunts, it just does, because that's what lions do. You're not here to hold a group meeting every time you make a decision that serves your future. And here's the best part. When you stop explaining, people start guessing. They start wondering what changed in you. Why are you more focused? Why don't you react the same way anymore? Why do you seem more peaceful, more in control? Let them wonder. Wonder? Mystery creates power. Silence creates authority. Look at the most respected people in the world. They're not the ones talking the most. They're the ones doing the most. They move quietly, make decisions confidently, and let the results speak volumes. When you're always explaining yourself, you train people to see you as unsure. You send the message, I need you to understand before I act. But when you act first and explain never, you send a completely different signal. One that says, I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. And your approval isn't part of the equation. You become magnetic when you stop needing to be understood. Because people sense confidence. They feel it. Confidence doesn't announce itself. It's just there. You walk different. You talk different. You're not trying to convince. You're just being, and sure, it feels uncomfortable at first. That silence, that space where you used to defend yourself, it feels heavy. You'll feel the urge to justify, to soften your decisions, to explain why you didn't text back, why you didn't show up, why you didn't say yes. But that's the exact moment where strength is built. That's the moment where you teach yourself, I don't owe anyone an explanation for doing what's best for me. And something powerful happens after a while. Your circle gets smaller, but it gets real. The people who truly get you stop asking why. They respect your decisions because they trust your character. The rest, they fade away. That's not loss. That's alignment. You don't lose people when you set boundaries. You lose the ones who were benefiting from your lack of them. So stop explaining yourself. Let your actions do the talking. Let your silence build curiosity. Let your results deliver your side of the story. Because at the end of the day, explanations are for those who doubt you. Results are for those who believed. Let's be honest, most people don't want an explanation. They want entertainment. They want something to gossip about, a story to fill their boredom. When they ask, why are you doing that? What they really mean is, give me something to talk about. And the second you explain, you hand them a story they can twist. You think they're trying to understand, but half the time they're just collecting details to use later. That's why silence is powerful, because people can't twist what they don't know. If you've ever noticed, the people who keep their lives private always seem more in control. It's not because they're hiding, it's because they understand energy. Every explanation is an emotional withdrawal. You're spending time convincing people who've already made up their minds about you. That's not conversation, that's charity. You know what's funny? The people who explain the least usually get respected the most. Ever seen someone who just does their thing quietly and suddenly everyone's talking about them? He doesn't even say much, but he gets stuff done. That's power. That's what happens when you stop trying to explain and start executing. Because explanations are a trap. The more you talk, the more people think they have a say in your life. And the more you let that happen, the more they start believing your direction is up for debate. You're not in a democracy. Your life is not a group vote. It's your mission, and missions don't get approved. They get executed. There's something magnetic about a person who just moves differently, who says nothing, changes everything, and never explains the shift. You can see it in their eyes. They've stopped seeking validation. They've stopped performing. They've realized the game isn't about being liked. It's about being respected. And here's the hard truth. You can't be respected and universally liked at the same time. The two rarely coexist. You'll either be liked by many or respected by few, and you must decide which matters more. The people who try to balance both end up miserable because they explain everything to everyone, trying to keep peace with people who don't even like themselves. Stop apologizing for evolving. You're supposed to outgrow things. You're supposed to change. You're supposed to move differently once you realize what actually matters. And if that offends someone, it's not your job to fix their insecurity. Think about it. If someone needs an explanation for why you want peace, why you're chasing goals, or why you're cutting distractions, then maybe they were the distraction. You can't grow around people who benefit from your confusion. Some people liked you better when you were lost because your chaos made them feel organized. And once you start creating order in your own life, they'll feel the shift. They'll sense they're losing access. That's when the questions start. You've changed. Why are you so quiet? What happened to the old you? You want to know what happened to the old you? The old you got tired. The old you spent years explaining and defending and justifying. The old you ran out of energy trying to make everyone comfortable. The old you finally died so the new you could live without apology. You're not here to convince anyone that your growth is valid. You're not here to translate your discipline into language they can accept. You're here to move forward, and moving forward means moving silent. And when the results come in, every person who doubted you will suddenly understand everything without you saying a word. Because that's the beautiful part about success. It's the loudest explanation there is. So don't waste another second trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. Don't explain, don't justify, don't debate. Just build, just move, just execute. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, you finally start becoming yourself. You know what's crazy? We live in a world where people will question your peace more than they questioned your chaos. When you were out every night wasting time, nobody said a word. But the second you start saying, "No, I'm staying in tonight," suddenly everyone's a philosopher. Bro, what's wrong? What happened to you? Why are you acting different? Nothing happened. That's the problem for them. You just woke up, you decided to stop being part of the circus, and they can't stand the silence that follows. See, the world doesn't celebrate quiet progress. It celebrates noise. It celebrates the show, the post, the captions, the endless explanations of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's why most people stay stuck. They spend more time narrating their life than living it. You can't explain greatness while you're building it. You just can't. The process doesn't make sense while it's happening. It's messy. It's confusing. It's personal. You're still figuring it out yourself. So why waste breath trying to make others comfortable with it? The funny part is, the moment you stop explaining yourself, people start assuming. They'll make up stories. He's arrogant. She's cold now. They think they're better. Let them talk. Assumptions are just noise from people who lost access. They're not mad. You changed. They're mad they can't read you anymore. You have to learn to love that misunderstanding, because that's the price of growth. You'll lose people, but you'll find yourself. You'll lose approval, but you'll gain peace. You'll lose conversations that go nowhere, but you'll gain time to focus on what actually matters. It's funny, silence used to make you uncomfortable. Now it's your best friend. That's how you know you're evolving. When peace starts to feel more powerful than proving a point, you've leveled up. And that's the whole point of this message. Evolution doesn't need an announcement. You don't need to tweet it. You don't need to post it. You don't need to explain it. Just move differently and let the results expose everything, because they always do. The day you stop explaining yourself is the day people stop wasting your time. It's the day you stop living for approval and start living for truth. You become dangerous, not because you're violent, but because you're unbothered. People can't manipulate a man who doesn't need to be understood. They can't guilt trip you when you've made peace with being misunderstood. So keep your plans quiet. Keep your focus sharp. Move like you've got nothing to prove and everything to build. And when they ask you, why'd you change? Just smile, because they'll find out soon enough. Let's get real. You don't need to explain yourself, because most people don't even listen when you do. They're not hearing you. They're waiting to reply. They're waiting for a reason to challenge you, mock you, or make your decisions about them. You say, "I'm focusing on myself," and they hear, "I'm leaving you behind." You say, "I'm working on my goals," and they hear, "I think I'm better than you." You say, "I just need space," and they hear, "You're the problem." See the pattern? No matter what you say, it's filtered through their insecurities. You could hand them the purest truth and they'd twist it until it matches their fears. So why waste your energy explaining? Why try to justify something they've already decided to misunderstand? People who want to understand you will. You won't even have to speak much. They'll read your actions, your consistency, your focus. They'll get it without needing a speech. And those who don't want to get it, no amount of talking will ever change their mind. That's why true confidence is quiet. Because the confident person doesn't chase understanding. They let results do the talking. They're not trying to win arguments. They're trying to win life. You ever notice how the loudest people usually have the least results? Always explaining, always defending, always proving. The quiet ones, they're busy. They're occupied with becoming something that can't be argued with. You can't debate success. You can't argue with result. And here's something important. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop explaining your standards too. You no longer say things like, "I just want people who respect my time." No. You simply remove those who don't. Silence does what paragraphs never could. The moment you start explaining your worth, you're already negotiating it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for having standards, for wanting better, or for walking away. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. You finally know your value, and you're done running it by others for approval. And let me tell you something about people. When you change, they'll either rise with you or resist you. The ones who rise will never ask you to explain. They'll just nod, smile, and say, "I see what you're doing." The ones who resist, they'll demand answers, they'll guilt trip, they'll say you've changed. Of course you have. That was the whole point. You don't need to explain your healing to those who benefited from your pain. You don't need to explain your focus to those who thrived on your distraction. You don't need to explain your peace to those who loved your chaos. Growth doesn't need commentary. It just needs consistency. There's real power in being unbothered. People can't argue with someone who's not reacting. Silence confuses them because they feed on your response. When you stop explaining, you take away their fuel. You become unpredictable. And unpredictable people are powerful. So when they ask, "Why'd you stop coming around?" you can just say, "I'm working." And when they say, "You've changed," you can say, "I was supposed to." No anger, no defense, no debate, just truth. And deep down, they'll respect it even if they never admit it. Because every human being recognizes power when they see it. And nothing radiates power like someone who doesn't explain, doesn't beg, doesn't prove, just moves. The world rewards people who act, not people who explain. Action is proof. Silence is strategy. And results Results are the final word. So from now on, you don't explain, you execute, you move, you evolve. Let them talk, let them guess, let them misunderstand. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, you stop being ordinary. You know what's funny? One day, the same people who doubted you will act like they always believed. They'll say things like, I always knew you'd make it. No, they didn't. They questioned you. They laughed at you. They called you obsessed, stubborn, or crazy. But now that your silence turned into success, suddenly everyone's a supporter. That's how life works. Nobody believes in the vision until it's visible. And that's why explaining yourself is useless. You can't make people see a picture that only exists in your head. They won't get it until it's hanging on the wall, framed by your results. The truth is, the world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards evidence. You can talk all day about what you're going to do, but until it's real, it's just noise. And every time you stop to explain, you delay the doing. You have to understand something. People will always misjudge what they don't understand. They'll call discipline ego. They'll call focus coldness. They'll call confidence arrogance. You can't live free and be understood at the same time. In a world obsessed with validation, silence is rebellion. It's rare. It's powerful. Everyone's busy shouting opinions into the void, desperate to be heard. And there you are, silent, focused, dangerous. You're not playing the same game anymore. You're not seeking applause. You're seeking growth. That's when the energy shifts. You stop explaining why you don't party, why you don't post everything, why you don't waste time. You just move differently. You start walking into rooms without needing to prove you belong there, because you've already proven it to yourself. And that's the key. You only explain yourself when you still doubt yourself. Once you know who you are, you stop negotiating your identity. You stop trying to convince people to see your worth. You already know your value, and it's not up for discussion. There's a peace that comes when you stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to be understood, and you start being effective. You stop trying to control how people see you, and you start controlling how you show up. That's where the confidence lives, in the silence between judgment and action. When you no longer owe explanations, you no longer carry guilt. You start to move with freedom. You start to speak with clarity. You start to live like your purpose matters more than people's opinion. And you know what happens? You attract a different kind of energy. Suddenly, the noise fades. The fake friends drift. The distractions disappear. You realize that you were never missing out. You were just surrounded by people who were fine with staying stuck. Most people will spend their entire lives explaining why they never became what they could have been. They'll have excuses, reasons, stories, everything except results. Don't be one of them. Let your life be your explanation. Let your success be your response. Let your discipline be your declaration. Because the truth is, people forget what you said. They forget what you explained, but they never forget how your results made them feel. They'll remember the moment they realized you actually did it without warning, without seeking approval, without a single apology. That's legacy, that's power, that's freedom. So from today, stop explaining, start executing. You don't need to prove your path to anyone. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. Just keep moving, keep working, keep evolving, because someday the same people asking why will be asking how. And when they do, you won't even need to answer. Your life will do it for you. No explanations, just results, always.